September 11, 2001, a date that forever altered the world as we know it. But what really happened behind those moments of terror? What if everything you think you know is just the surface of a deeper, darker story? Today, we unravel the shocking truth of 9/11s, the attacks, the heroes, the lies, and the chilling consequences that still haunt us 2 decades later. Stay with me, because this story will change how you see history forever. Welcome to the new video. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and leave your thoughts in the comments. September 11, 2001, a date etched into the memory of the world, a day cloaked in terror, confusion, and disbelief. It began like any other bright September morning in the United States. But what unfolded next would shatter the very fabric of a nation. At 8:46 a.m., the silence was broken by a horrific crash. American Airlines Flight 11 had been hijacked and slammed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. But this was only the beginning. On board that flight were 92 souls, ordinary people suddenly caught in an extraordinary nightmare. Among them were 5 hijackers, led by Mohammed Atta, a man trained to fly and trained to destroy. He wrested control from the pilots, turning a routine flight into a weapon aimed directly at the heart of America. The once mighty North Tower, a symbol of economic power and human achievement, was now a blazing inferno. As news of the attack spread, disbelief quickly turned to dread. America's president, George W. Bush, was thousands of miles away at an elementary school in Florida, reading a children's book titled The Pet Goat. The gravity of the moment was lost in those precious minutes. It wasn't until 17 minutes after the first attack that the second plane, United Airlines Flight 175, also hijacked, thundered into the South Tower, confirming that this was no accident. This was a coordinated act of terror. Smoke billowed, flames roared, and panic spread like wildfire. In the corridors of power, confusion reigned. Messages flew, orders were given and questioned, and a nation held its breath. The world watched in horror as the Twin Towers, once towering symbols of New York City, were transformed into monuments of tragedy. But the nightmare was far from over. In the skies above America, 2 more flights were hijacked. United Airlines Flight 93 and American Airlines Flight 77. Their destinations, Washington, D.C., the seat of American power. Flight 77 was crashed into the Pentagon, the nerve center of the U.S. military, while Flight 93 became a battleground in the sky as passengers bravely fought to reclaim control. What happened on Flight 93 remains partly shrouded in mystery. Was the passengers' revolt enough to prevent an attack on the White House or Capitol Hill? What desperate last moments unfolded inside that plane? The story of their courage is a beacon amid the chaos, but also a haunting reminder of the day's terror. As the morning wore on, the unthinkable happened. The South Tower, weakened by fire and damage, began to crumble. Its collapse was a deafening roar, sending clouds of dust and debris swirling into the streets below. Then, moments later, the North Tower followed, a catastrophic implosion that left the city and the world reeling. By midday, more than 3,000 lives were lost. Thousands more were injured. The attacks were claimed by the terrorist group Al-Qaeda, but their mastermind, Osama bin Laden, remained hidden, a ghost in the shadows, issuing cryptic statements and evading justice. Yet, beneath the headlines and the rubble lay deeper questions. Why did this happen? Who truly orchestrated these attacks? And how would this day forever alter the lives of millions? Not just in America, but across the globe. These questions are not just history, they are a warning. Because in the aftermath, the world changed forever. The dust had barely settled over New York City, when a new battle began not on the streets, but in the shadows. The nation was reeling, desperate for answers, and fear was spreading faster than any virus. Who was behind this devastating attack? How could so many lives be shattered in mere minutes? The face of terror was elusive, hidden deep within a network of darkness. Osama bin Laden, a name that had whispered through intelligence circles for years, now emerged into the harsh light of suspicion. His organization, Al-Qaeda, claimed responsibility, but the true extent of the plot was staggering. It was not just a terrorist attack, it was a calculated strike against the very ideals America stood for: freedom, security, and power. In Washington, the government scrambled to respond. The skies were sealed shut. No plane was allowed to fly anywhere in the United States. Airports emptied as grounded flights became floating cages of uncertainty. Emergency rooms overflowed with the injured and the desperate, while families clung to their phones, hoping for good news. Meanwhile, deep inside secret bunkers and intelligence headquarters, a fierce game of cat and mouse unfolded. Agencies raced to piece together clues from intercepted communications, financial transactions, and eyewitness accounts. The hunt for the masterminds was on, but every answer only led to more questions. One of the most chilling revelations was the story of Flight 93. Passengers who had only moments before been terrified victims became heroes. As their hijacked plane hurtled toward Washington, they made a decision that would change history. They fought back, overpowering the terrorists. But at a terrible cost, the plane crashed into an empty field in Pennsylvania. The intended target, many believe, was either the White House or the Capitol building, the very heart of American democracy. What might have happened if that plane had reached its destination? The mere thought sends shivers down the spine. Back on the ground, the country began to change in ways no one could have predicted. The government enacted sweeping laws, most notably the Patriot Act, granting unprecedented powers to spy on its own citizens. Surveillance cameras multiplied, phone calls were monitored, and privacy became a casualty in the name of security. Was this necessary to keep the nation safe, or was fear being weaponized to control the population? The airports became fortresses overnight. Long gone were the days of casual strolls through terminals. Travelers now faced full-body scans, endless ID checks, and strict liquid restrictions. Cockpit doors were reinforced, pilots armed, and security officers trained to face the unimaginable. Yet, beneath the surface of these changes, something darker was brewing. The attacks had ignited a wildfire of suspicion and hatred. Muslims and people from South Asia, regardless of their background, were suddenly seen through a lens of fear and hostility. Hate crimes surged. Innocent people were targeted simply because of their faith or appearance. The line between patriotism and prejudice blurred dangerously. As America plunged into a war on terror, it invaded Afghanistan, hunting those who orchestrated the attacks. But with every strike, the cycle of violence deepened. The question hung heavy in the air: was this war truly making the world safer, or was it fueling the very extremism it sought to destroy? Behind closed doors, whispers of government overreach and human rights abuses emerged. Whistleblowers risked everything to reveal the truth about mass surveillance and secret prisons. Yet, many accepted the sacrifice of liberty for the promise of security, blind to the consequences. And so, the story of 9/11 is not just about planes and buildings. It is about the fragile balance between fear and freedom, revenge and justice, truth and deception. But this is only the beginning. The final chapter holds the real lesson, one that the world still struggles to understand. The aftermath of 9/11 didn't bring peace. Instead, it unleashed a relentless storm of consequences that continue to ripple through the world today. The war on terror became a battleground not just overseas, but within the very souls of nations and individuals. America's invasion of Afghanistan marked the beginning of a conflict that would stretch for 2 decades, years of bloodshed, secrets, and unanswered questions. Osama bin Laden, the ghost behind the attacks, remained hidden, evading capture like a shadow slipping through cracks. It wasn't until May 2011 that he was finally found and killed in a covert operation, an explosive moment celebrated worldwide, yet shadowed by doubts and conspiracy theories. Had justice been served, or was this only a chapter in a much larger story? Meanwhile, the world watched as new threats emerged. Extremism bred extremism. The more governments clamped down, the more resentment and anger grew in the shadows. The rise of ISIS and other terror groups became a haunting echo of 9/11, a reminder that violence only begets violence. Closer to home, the cost of fear was undeniable. The government's increased powers, justified by the need for safety, had eroded civil liberties. Mass surveillance became the norm. Whistleblowers like Edward Snowden revealed chilling truths: how entire populations were monitored, their privacy stripped away under the guise of protection. The line between security and oppression blurred, leaving many questioning what kind of freedom remained. And the social fabric frayed. Hate crimes against Muslims, Sikhs, and South Asians surged. Innocent lives were lost in acts of blind rage, fueled by ignorance and fear. People changed their appearances, their names, their lives, all to escape suspicion. Communities fractured, trust broken. The very ideals of diversity and tolerance seemed under siege. Yet, amid this darkness, stories of courage and resilience shone bright. The passengers on Flight 93, ordinary citizens who chose to fight back, became symbols of hope. First responders, firefighters, and everyday heroes risked everything to save lives amid the ruins. Their bravery is a testament to the human spirit's strength even in the bleakest hours. But perhaps the greatest lesson of 9/11 is a warning that hatred and revenge only spiral into endless cycles of violence. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. The attacks were born from hatred, and the response, while justified in grief, often echoed the same patterns. Generations have been caught in this cycle, one attack triggering another, one injustice fueling the next. So what now? How do we break free from this endless loop? The answer is as complex as the tragedy itself. It requires understanding, compassion, and the courage to seek truth beyond fear. It demands that we question those in power, refuse to be blinded by anger, and remember the innocent lives on all sides. The story of 9/11 is not just a chapter in history books. It is a mirror reflecting the choices humanity faces every day. Will we allow fear to define us, or will we find a path toward healing, peace, and true freedom? As you watch this, remember the faces, the lives lost, the heroes, and the lessons buried beneath the rubble. Because the future depends on what we do with this story. The world will never forget September 11, 2001, but maybe, just maybe, we can choose to remember it differently.